Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back. We've almost finished the first paper in our online class. I'm asking you guys to submit it for Friday's check-in. So congratulations, you're almost there. This video today is mostly designed to help you with your peer review. Okay, so tomorrow is for Tuesday's check-in. Tomorrow we're going to do peer review. You can take your, as far as I'm concerned, you can take your time. Phone's buzzing. Sorry. You guys can take your time. So I say the Tuesday check-in. But if you can at least have them done by Wednesday, I would think. That will give you guys more than enough time. Post them. Read over your classmates' work, etc., etc. In addition to that, I want to go over in this video some smaller stuff. So some small common grammar mistakes that you would notice really early on in a course like this. So hopefully, by going over this, you guys will notice these problems showing up in various papers. So you can point them out to your classmates. However, I do want to make clear that let's just skip straight ahead to the questions. Just a moment. I do want to make explicitly clear that these questions are in an order of priority, from most important, to least important. So whenever you guys are looking over each other's papers, I want you to mostly focus on the big picture. So is this the story? Well, first off, is it a good story? Is it a clear, well-organized story? Does the story have some kind of ultimate point at the end where it drives home something to the readers? I'm still working on reading your guys' responses to Steinbeck and Abby and the student examples. I'm going to try to respond to those two this week. But of course, the Steinbeck on fishing, we could talk about like what was the main point of that. It was kind of making this point about American material culture, how we're so driven to be competitive and compete, that we kind of lose out on the joys of fishing, compared to the British, even the sort of Germanic cultures. Americans take everything so seriously. He says no one could become president, if they haven't fished at some point in their life. The Serpents of Paradise was kind of about, all beings are connected. Abby was a park ranger for the Forest Service. He's kind of expressing this point about how all life is sacred. And he talked about the snakes, right? So he's kind of was that bonding with the snakes, with the snake. He sort of watched their mating, how that worked. And he came to this ultimate sort of poetic conclusion that all life's sacred, all of us are kindred. The student examples, they all each had their own purposes too. The student example about parents being busted for meth, kind of had this, don't take anything for granted kind of message. The narrative about overcoming that life-threatening condition, that was almost a similar kind of story. The football one was, even though we lost the ultimate game, we still had friendship and camaraderie and all that good stuff. Kind of digressed, but I wanted to at least talk a little bit for a moment about those samples. You want all those pieces of writing were really good, I thought. So you want to tell an interesting story, but you also want to tell a story with a point. So as we look through these questions, Did the opening paragraph catch your attention, or was there a part of it that could be cut? So make sure the opening paragraph hooks the reader. Maybe you draw them in with some imagery. One of the great things about the Serpents of Paradise piece was Abby kind of painted the picture of a normal morning, with really great description at the beginning. What story has the author chosen to tell? What were some of the sensory descriptions, detail, or imagery that you liked? Could the writer include more details? This question is important because it's essential in this narrative that the writer stop and smell the roses a little bit. It's important to get from point A to point B, but you want to sort of ground the reader with description and imagery. Does the essay focus in on a scene or specific moment? Could the story be cut down in scope? If you take that one prompt I gave you, think about when you were 10, when you were 15. That prompt can lead, to the paper losing its focus, because you're writing a 3 to 4 page paper. So you want to make sure you tell a story that's tightly knit in the limitations of 3 to 4 pages that you've got. If you find that the person could cut down and tighten the story down a little bit, make it clear to them on the discussion board. Right, this question 5 is probably the most important. Why does the writer want to tell the story, and why should the reader want to read it? You don't want to just tell a story just for the sake of telling a story. You want to make sure that it has that point to it. That's part of the nonfiction personal narrative genre. You always want to make sure that it has that ultimate point. That usually happens in the conclusion. Does the writer have a satisfying conclusion? So that question 5 and 6 kind of go together. How does the essay's organization or lack thereof help or hurt the writer's ability to demonstrate the central idea? How else might the writer organize the story? So do you think the writer told the story in a way where that ultimate point effectively came out? Maybe the writer could change things up with how the story is organized. Like I talked about in the first video, you could talk about things like you could organize it by starting in the middle and then going back and forth. You can start at the end and then go back and forth. Lots of ways you can express your idea. The question is, in your opinion, does the author achieve that? Does the author achieve good organization? Does the writer have any cliches or sentimental moments? You guys know what cliches are, things that we've read 1,000 times, old sayings and whatnot. What suggestions do you have for a catchy title? Titles are important, but you want to make sure. I would always suggest you come up with your title last after you've written everything else. It's always a good. So your story should be about a central idea or a central theme. If you can capture that central idea or that central theme with your title, that's great. And then question 10, does the writer make a lot of small mistakes with things like comma splices, run-ons, typos, point of view, things I'm getting ready to talk about? So let's talk about that then. So I've got a Google Doc